And after listening to all the politics, is the issue political or is it just the issue of the economy? Where the argument could be from a South African, fix your economy or your economic sanctions. All this other political stuff and history is just a sideshow. Your only issue is getting economic prosperity so you can go back home. But please feel free to address him as you wish.
Yeah, I just wanted to address this. The issue of the frontline states playing a minimal role, being attacked, nobody's disputing that. We all know about the cross-border raids. We all know about the South African Defence Force going to Mozambique, going to Lesotho, killing people there, but primarily they were looking for MK and the PAC. And to say that ZANU-PF was friendlier to the ANC, maybe friendlier to the PAC, because even Dabengwa also mentions that when Thabo Mbeki said that, ZANU-PF, they were kind to them. No, they even refused the MK to use Zimbabwe as a transit to attack South Africa. MK, they preferred Zimbabwe to be there so that they can come to South Africa and use Zimbabwe as a stepping stone. But Mugabe said no. He refused them that permission. So, when you ask me a question about should South Africans worry or concern themselves about the politics of Zimbabwe, South Africans, they're informed, they know the history of Zimbabwe, how it got liberated, but South Africans, they're saying, as much as these countries, they put their people first. Swaziland did the same. It was a hostile country. Mugabe became hostile. He was forced, even when it comes to Harare Declaration, it was Kaunda who was imposing, no, let us have this discussion with the Afrikaners. And even Kaunda imposed those conditions to the ANC. Abu Krisani, they wanted to fight. Kaunda at that time was viewed as a CIA spy or as a Western spy. He said, no, let's talk to these guys. Let's go to South Africa, because Kaunda himself was also protecting his interests that he had with South Africa, be it the railway lane, being its shipment. So therefore, he did not want to destabilize those trade dealings that he had with the Pretoria administration. Hence, he forced the MK and APLA to come and negotiate. And our negotiations, it doesn't come because ZANU-PF was fighting, ZANU-PF was nowhere. Mugabe was nowhere in Angola. It was the Cuban and the Soviets. If you have to understand the struggle of South Africa, you have to go to the Cold War. As they say, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. So in 1985, when Gorbachev met Ronald Reagan, they decided they're going to end the Cold War, or Russia or the Soviet Union, they were losing the war. So they were becoming a capitalist. And then it became, a natural progression. Even the people that they were supporting on the ground, MK was supported in the Soviet. PAC was supported by China. America was supporting, the National Party. They had to make peace. The same way as, be it in Mozambique, we have Utlakama fighting Nabo Shamora Machel. They also had to make peace, because Russia and America, they were making peace. And hence the negotiations, which was a sponsored program, the 1992-94 project of CODESA. So, as South African, for me, I'm saying Zimbabweans, we understand, what they went through, being a transit state, but they had to take care of their own. That's why they were hostile to us at the end and forced us, even if, it means that you must negotiate, because they were looking after their interests. Lesotho did the same, That's why Labua Jonathan was defeated. Samora Machel did the same. He signed a Komati Peace Accord 1984, to say he will get rid of this PAC, ANC, they must go back. Tanzania did the same. So as a South African, we're saying that we cannot, be overburdened continuously in perpetuity by the issue of Zimbabwe. We can help them where we need to help them. but they must fix their own country. I mean, most of them, they claim to be refugees. But it's very funny, December time, they go to Zimbabwe. What type of a refugee is that? You know, Good Friday, they go back to Zimbabwe. They come here to work. And when they come here, they are not even, you know, sympathetic to the South African cause. I mean, you look here in town, you don't see a South African anymore. You look at certain industries, you don't see a South African. You see Malawi, you see Zimbabweans. There's never been a case where South Africans went in numbers, you know, went into other people's countries, and when they get there, they undercut. If I'm saying I'm earning 10,000 a month and I take 2,000 rand a month, there's never been a case, you know, where South Africans, I don't recall a case where they own a city like Hillbrow, where they own a city like Pietermaritzburg, where they own, you know, Cape Town, where South Africans are now squashed into townships, you know, and you look into the CBDs like Johannesburg, you see Zimbabweans, foreigners. There's never been a situation where South Africans went to Burkina Faso and started selling fake products, started doing crime. Those are the issues that are concerning to South Africans, saying, guys, we understood at first that you were facing a problem coming with sanctions. You know, the West was hostile to you. But we thought that when you come here, you know, you're going to understand our situation and work with us. But this is a different kind. This is not a Thomas Sankara that we receive. We thought that we're going to receive people like, you know, Petrus Lumumba. But when you come here to terrorize us. You know, most of brutal crimes. I mean, even Faith Mazibuko said that, you know, if you are in Johannesburg, in the north of suburb, when there's a crime happening in a particular way, I know immediately what is a Zimbabwean. And people will say that crime doesn't have nationality, crime is crime. No, crime has nationality. There's a certain crime that is pushed by a certain nationality, like drug and prostitution. If it was happening before, it was not so prevalent, but we know that Nigerians are there. If there's a brutal crime, when it comes to explosive, cash in transit, I know that I'll find a Zimbabwean. If there's a South African, out of 20, I'll find one South African. And South Africans are aggrieved by that. If there's fake products, Adidas, be it eggs, I now see Kunamakanda Werab, you know, Kanda la Konal Board. So South Africans said, we've never seen that, you know. And people, the woke nation, they will tell you that you're generalizing, you know. When you talk, statistics by nature, they're generalizing. You're rounding off. When I'm saying there are 60 million people in South Africa, there's 16 million plus, but I'm rounding off. And you look into the crime, because this is the place where most people make a mistake. They'll say, no, there are so many South Africans in jail, you know. But you look at a particular crime. You know, you say, who's doing this crime? Building hijacking. You know, in spite of which there are many South Africans, because it's their country anyway, you'll find more South Africans in jail. But if you go to building hijacking, we don't know building hijacking. We've never written buildings for sale. You go to Dubai to work for 3 months. When you come back, there are Zimbabweans inside your house. They stay for a certain number of period. And people, they specialize in learning our laws. They are so good when it comes to that. They study our laws, about Pi Act. They know that if you stay for a certain number of days, it's no longer trespassing. You need a civil court action now to go to court. When you go to the police and say, somebody, I know, I'm in London for 3 months. For how long? He says, no, it's been there for you. I say, we cannot touch that person. Go to court. And now it must cost me money to evict that person. To go to court today, if it's 2023, it means you're going to see the judge, 24, maybe about 2025, 26. That's when your matter is going to be heard, because there's a backlog, and it's even now worse because they're using online courts and all that. When you get there, you know, and you still might not win, because the constitution of this country says before you evict a tenant, they must look into the situation of this person. Does he have children? You know, do they go to school? The interests of the children come first. The guys are so smart. They impregnate quickly. Rotando's got, I know him. He had a girlfriend.
No personal shots, please. No personal shots. Let's keep it general. Let's keep it general. No personal shots.
He's got kids in South Africa.
No, I don't mind.
No.
No sharp.
No children and personal things, please.
No sharp. I'll stay off that. But most of the guys, you know, they come here, you know, and their marriages of convenience. You know, or conveniences. You know, they're so smart because they learn these things, you know. And South Africans now, they look and say, no, it cannot happen, you know. And we call these guys our brothers. You know, what type of a brother who comes to your house and take your girl child who's 14 and make her a prostitute? What type of a brother who can take your child and send your child to China carrying drugs because this child is poor? That's not a brother. You take to China, where he's going to be hanged. I don't have that mentality. I see a 22-year-old, I see my child. Some of them, they look at me, your mom, I'll talk to your mom, not you, because I've got that thing with this is my child. So that's what South Africans are saying. I'm saying these guys who are coming here, they don't have the patriotism, they don't have the Pan-Africanism that us, we're supposed, we are told, we are all, Africans, Pan-Africanism. It is them who've killed, who've taken out Abu Petrus Lumumba, and they continue business as usual. It is them who've killed Thomas Sankara, who was preaching Pan-Africanism. It is them who've taken Kwame Nkrumah out of power. All these guys who are talking Pan-Africanism, continental unity, like in 1963 when they started the OAU, which, continental unity, we are all Africans. All those leaders who are pushing for that, taken out of power. But now, when it comes to South Africa must push that Pan-Africanism that they're not pushing in their own countries. They must push unity that they're not pushing in Zimbabwe. The Ndebelers don't want to see Shonas, even to this day. The Hausas and the Igbos, and they're fighting, up to this day. So it cannot be that, we are forced about this unity that Bona, they are using to gain here, like the term xenophobia. When people say we are xenophobic.
Let me address some of the things that
xenophobia
he's
only xenophobia. Yes,
He'll finish now.
yeah, xenophobia is a term. That's why I hate this term. What is xenophobia? Because it's only used against South Africans. When Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe said, retail work, certain jobs are for Zimbabweans, nobody said anything. In Botswana, when they say we are putting Botswana first, nobody's saying anything. In Kenya, the president wakes up tomorrow and says, from now on, Nabokana, certain jobs will be for our citizens first. Nobody's talking xenophobia. But in South Africa, there's this term that is used against us, which is unfair.